At the Whitmore County Heritage Room, stored behind a cracked glass frame, lies a sepia photograph labeled only as Whitmore Children, 1927. The image is ordinary at first glance, four small siblings standing stiffly on a dirt road. But when you lean closer, the one detail no archivist can explain hits you like a cold shiver. Their mouths are open, wide, frozen mid-scream, yet the caption beneath them reads, "Silent Parade." That photograph became the first physical clue in a story that forces the body to react before the mind can catch up. A tightening in the throat. A pressure behind the eyes. A feeling that something is wrong long before you understand why. Because the core truth is simple and brutal, every child born into the Whitmore bloodline spoke only in screams, until one whispered a name in 1927. The official reference comes from the fictional Whitmore County Social Hygiene Report, 1927, attributed to a school nurse named Clara Ridgeway. It remains the earliest institutional record hinting at what followed. Before we continue, a reminder, this narrative is a fictional dramatization created solely for entertainment. None of the people, events, or institutions described are real. And if you find yourself drawn into stories where history hides human decisions and consequences, consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. It helps the channel keep digging into forgotten corners like this one. The story of the Whitmore line begins long before the photograph, long before the reports, long before anyone thought to call the pattern a condition. According to a fictional ledger preserved in the Whitmore Township Birth Registry, 1889 to 1910, the first documented mention appears beside the name Martha Eileen Whitmore, born March 3, 1889 in the rural folds of Pine Hollow, Appalachia. A midwife named Ruth Carlin wrote only 4 words in the margin, born screaming. Never stopped. That line became the quiet foundation of a system no one meant to build. By 1897, when Martha had her first child, Elias Benton Whitmore, the expectation had already settled into the family. Whitmore babies do not cry. They scream. Day and night. For weeks, then months, sometimes years. And because the hills isolated families more than any belief system could, the Whitmores developed rules. Routines. Rituals that felt like survival at the time. The 3 silencing practices, as later fictionalized in the Pine Hollow Oral Histories, 1934, formed the backbone of the household. The night cradle rule. No child could be comforted during nighttime screaming. The circle of quiet. Family members stood in a ring around the child each dawn, waiting for screams to soften. The binding of names. A Whitmore child would not be spoken to until age 5, under the belief that naming delayed control. These rules did not emerge from cruelty but from exhaustion. From the grinding relentlessness that stripped choice from survival. But rules earn power quickly in isolated places. By 1908, neighbors whispered that the Whitmores had their own way, and by 1912, even the schoolhouse teacher kept her distance, noting that Elias's younger sister, June Eleanor Whitmore, made no sound that resembled childhood. Yet somewhere between necessity and tradition, something began to twist. The practices hardened. The silence around the screams became doctrine. People stopped questioning. And a system grew, one that no one had designed, but everyone maintained. Because in Pine Hollow, rules weren't just followed. They were inherited. The turning point didn't announce itself. It didn't arrive as a single event, a single scream, a single night. Instead, it crept in quietly, beginning around 1917, when the Whitmore household shifted from adapting to the screaming to expecting it, demanding it, even shaping behavior around it. That year, according to the fictional Pine Hollow Constable's Log, 1917, a neighbor named Thomas Avery reported hearing sustained wailing past endurance, not from infants but from children old enough to speak words. Yet when the constable visited the Whitmore cabin the next morning, he recorded only 3 words, "Family states normal." That statement marked the beginning of complicity. By 1919, the family's internal rules had tightened. What had once been survival responses became rigid doctrines. Elias, now 10, was ordered not to respond to June's screams, not even when she clawed her palms until they bled. Witnesses later recounted that he would sit with arms crossed, jaw trembling, eyes refusing to meet hers. Because emotion, in the Whitmore line, was considered fuel. And fuel made the screaming worse. People saw it. They knew it. And they did nothing. The fictional Appalachian school attendance roll, 1920, notes that June missed 19 consecutive days with no questions asked. Not by the teacher. Not by the town council. Not by neighbors who passed the cabin daily and heard the piercing cries drifting through winter wood. Resistance faded. Acceptance spread. Even well-meaning people told themselves the same rationalizations. It's their family. It's not our place. It's always been this way. Good people enabled harm. Not because they wanted to, but because looking away felt easier than confronting a system that had become self-sustaining. By 1922, when another baby, Lydia Mae Whitmore, was born screaming into the cold morning air, the town barely noticed. No questions. No records beyond a single line, normal Whitmore birth. And that was the moment no one realized the system had shifted completely. It no longer reacted to suffering. It required it. Their names appear in different fictional archives, buried in margins, misfiled pages, or hastily scribbled community ledgers. 3 girls. 3 years. 3 lives that should have unfolded slowly, gently, ordinarily. Instead, each became another entry in the quiet lineage of suffering the Whitmore system produced long before anyone dared question it. 1. Sarah Luella Whitmore, age 11, year 1918. Her name surfaces in the Whitmore Township Infirmary log, winter 1918. A single line, bruised throat. Cause unknown. Sent home. Sarah had been the first child outsiders tried to help. A traveling nurse noticed her voice was raw, shredded, almost, after years of constant screaming. Sarah carried a small tin locket with a pressed violet. One devastating detail, she would place the locket in her mouth during the worst episodes, hoping pressure would hold the scream back. When she died of pneumonia later that year, the locket was still dented from her teeth. Pattern, name, age, year, event, aftermath, metaphor. For Sarah, the metaphor was simple. Some children tried to swallow their storms. 2. Emma Catherine Whitmore, age 9, year 1921. A fictional clipping from the Appalachian Rural Chronicle, August 1921, references her disappearance for 3 days. She had run into the woods, seeking silence. When found, Emma's hands were caked with soil. She had dug small pits into the ground, each the size of her body, as if trying to bury the noise itself. She survived, but the record notes she spoke in gestures only, unwilling to use her voice. Her aftermath, silence became her only form of resistance. 3. Lydia Mae Whitmore, age 5, year 1923. Her entry lives in the fictional Pine Hollow Parish Journal. Lydia's screams were so constant that her mother wrapped quilts around the cabin posts to muffle the reverberation. The quilts didn't quiet Lydia, they quieted the witnesses. When Lydia collapsed one summer evening, the record states only weakness from exertion. Her metaphor, a child shouldn't have to fight her own breath. They were not legends. They were daughters. Her name does not appear in any birth registry with annotations. No warnings in the margins. No midwife's notes hinting she was different. Anna Rosalind Whitmore, born on October 14, 1924, entered the world screaming just like every Whitmore child before her. But according to the fictional Pine Hollow Midwife Ledger, 1924, the midwife added an unusual addendum beneath her name, eyes focused. As if listening for something. Anna screamed, yes, but not endlessly. Not reflexively. Her cries came in bursts, patterned, deliberate, almost investigative. While other Whitmore children screamed as reaction, Anna screamed as response. And that difference, small, easy to miss, marked the beginning of her refusal. By 1927, at age 3, she began covering her ears during the family's circle of quiet, breaking the first of the inherited rules. By 1928, she hid under the porch during the night cradle hours, violating the second. When her uncle found her and dragged her back inside, she did not thrash or bite the air like the others. She stared at him with a narrow, unsettling awareness, as though she understood the system better than those enforcing it. The fictional Appalachian Child Welfare Notes, 1929, unfiled, describe her as observant, not reactive. A trait that made the family uneasy. Because Anna did not simply scream, She asked why she screamed. Not through words, but through gestures, pauses, and moments of stillness that disrupted the tightly layered rituals keeping the household functioning. The moment of defiance everyone remembers, recorded later in the Pine Hollow Oral Accounts, Volume 2, occurred when she was 4. During a dawn circle of quiet, instead of screaming with the others, she pressed her palms together, inhaled sharply, and released only a single sound. A whisper. No one could make out the word. Some said it was stop, others insisted it was June. But the reaction was the same, shock spreading through the ring of adults who suddenly realized a Whitmore child had broken the final rule. She would not go quietly. She never had. The disappearance began in the quietest way possible, ironic, given her lineage. On the morning of May 6, 1930, Anna Rosalind Whitmore, age 5, was discovered missing from the small cot beside her mother's bed. No broken window. No footprints in the damp clay. No sign of struggle. Just an indentation in the quilt where her body had been, still warm when her mother touched it. The fictional Pine Hollow Sheriff's Ledger, 1930, states the search began within the hour. Neighbors combed the woods. Men called her name despite knowing she had never spoken more than that single whisper. Even the creek beds were checked, though no one said aloud what they feared might be found there. The system that had controlled her for years now panicked at the thought of losing its most unpredictable child. But Anna was not lost. She was hiding. For 6 days, she evaded every search party, later recounted in the fictional report Whitmore Township Missing Child Review, 1930 to 1933. Several entries mention faint noises in the ravine, but no one could confirm if they were animal cries or Anna testing the boundaries of her own voice. Her return was as abrupt as her escape. At dusk on the 7th day, she walked back into the yard, barefoot, hair tangled with pine needles, eyes focused with unsettling clarity. She wasn't crying. Wasn't screaming. She walked straight to her father, stopped 3 feet away, and whispered a single sentence. "You don't hear us." Her mother collapsed. Her father froze. And her uncle, the same one who had dragged her back during the night cradle ritual, took a step backward, as if the small child before him suddenly carried weight that didn't belong to her age. The fictional Pine Hollow Parish Minutes, June 1930 records a brief entry, "Child return changed. Family uneasy." That understatement hid the truth. Anna had not simply escaped. She had come back with knowledge. Knowledge that would split the Whitmore system open. No one in the Whitmore household spoke openly about what happened after Anna's return. Not in front of neighbors. Not in church. Not even within the family circle. But the fictional Pine Hollow Overseer notes, autumn 1930 hints at the shift, child removed from nightly rituals. Family shows fractures. Exile did not come in one moment, it descended slowly like a winter fog. After her whispered accusation, "You don't hear us," Anna was separated from the routines that defined the Whitmore lineage. No more circle of quiet. No more night cradle. No more rules designed to control sound. Instead, she was isolated behind the house in a small storage shed, converted hastily into a sleeping space. The intention, according to later accounts, was to protect the younger children from her influence. But everyone understood the real reason. They feared her. By late 1930, her father stopped looking her in the eyes. Her mother brought food without speaking. And her uncle, once the enforcer of the family's strictest practices, ceased entering the yard entirely. The fictional Whitmore Township Oral Depositions, 1931, contain a chilling recollection from a neighbor. She walked like she wasn't part of them anymore. Yet exile did not weaken Anna. It crystallized her purpose. She began creating small marks on the shed wall, lines, clusters, patterns, each one representing a day, a thought, or possibly another attempt at language. No one asked. No one wanted to know. But the marks grew. Spread. Formed shapes that looked unsettlingly like sound waves. Meanwhile, inside the main cabin, the system that had once held the family together began to crack. June's daughter, Marie Alice Whitmore, age 4, suddenly refused to participate in the morning ritual. Lydia May's younger cousin woke with nosebleeds from the relentless screaming around her. Even the adults began showing strain, shaking hands, hollow eyes, whispered arguments recorded indirectly in the fictional Pine Hollow Parish Counseling Ledger, 1931. The Whitmore system was no longer functioning. Not because Anna left it, but because her absence revealed its rot. By spring of 1931, the family faced an impossible truth: they could not return to the old ways. And they could not follow Anna, either. So the system buckled, quietly, inevitably. Anna did not stay in Pine Hollow. By the winter of 1932, the fictional Whitmore County departure log lists a single undetailed line: unnamed minor escorted to Ridgeway Settlement School. That school, 40 miles east, across 2 ridgelines and a narrow mountain pass, took in children who didn't fit the patterns of their home communities. There, teachers recorded the first real notes anyone ever made about Anna's inner world. The fictional Ridgeway Settlement Behavioral Report, 1933, describes her as quiet but highly perceptive, noting that she often sat near the back wall during lessons, tracing invisible shapes with her fingertips. Her marks no longer resembled sound waves, they resembled letters. Not clear ones. Proto-letters. As if she were inventing her own alphabet from memory. By age 8, she began speaking in short, functional sentences. Not loudly. Not confidently. But deliberately. A teacher named Marjorie Kane wrote,